I think we pretty much got it. I don't know about you, but I've always loved the sound of a great classic synthesizer. There's something about them that just adds so much emotional weight to a song in a retro 80s kind of way. Even in acoustic music, sometimes I like to throw in synthesizers. Some of my favorite uses of classic sounding synths are in the Who's Next album by The Who, the Whitesnake album by Whitesnake, the Stranger Things TV show, and now Cobra Kai. Today, I'm going to be recreating the synthesizer sound that plays during the end credits for every Cobra Kai episode, because I feel like doing that really can help you understand how to build a great classic synthesizer sound. If you can do this, it'll be easier for you to create your own sounds in that style, and it will really teach you a lot about sound design in general. So let's get started. So I'm going to be creating this sound in FL Studio, but you can really use any digital audio workstation. All you really need is a synthesizer that you really like. Some examples of synthesizers you could use are the Synth 1, you could use Serum, you could use Massive, you could use Operator inside of Ableton, you could use Analog inside of Ableton, FM8. I'm going to be using Sytrus, which is built into FL Studio Producer Edition. It's just a really good synthesizer for creating classic type synth sounds. So I'm going to set default for the preset because we're not using any presets. And this one is going to be called Synth. And I'm going to put this on track 5, I believe. Cool. And so the first thing, so right now we just have a sine wave. All that's happening is a sine wave is starting here and then going to the output. Before we try to craft our sound, let's just enter the notes of the song, because that'll make it easier to compare. So I'm just going to enter the notes. So this is the melody. So now I'm just going to enter the harmony. So I think there's a harmony on that line, and that'll help us get closer. So I'm just going to pick out the harmony by ear. So with the harmony, it sounds like this. So the reason it sounds so bad is because we just have a sine wave playing. It'll sound better when we get the actual sound dialed in, but I'm going to make the harmony notes quieter so that the main line stands out more. So I'm doing that by adjusting the velocity of just those notes. So now it sounds like this. Now, one really important factor to get the sound to feel right is we need an ominous bass in the background. So I'm going to add another synthesizer, another Sytrus, get rid of the preset. And let's put this one on track 6, I believe. Yes. And this one I almost want it to sound like a cello. But first we have to lower the pitch. So if I take this number right here and I just keep dividing by 2, I'm going to go down by an octave. So that's down 1 octave. This is down 2 octaves. And this is down 3 octaves, just dividing by 2. All right, now I'm going to enter the bass notes. All right, now let's try to nail the sound. So for here, the first step, whenever you're creating a classic sounding synthesizer, just try a saw wave. Saw waves are everywhere. They're very versatile because they have every harmonic in the harmonic series, which means they sound quite natural for a synthesizer. Because in real life, we have different frequencies kind of vibrating in a harmony with other sounds, and that creates harmonics. So a saw wave has every harmonic in the harmonic series, so it's easier to make it sound like it might exist, actually. Like, it's a very complex sound. There's a lot of frequencies to work with. So just start with a saw wave whenever you're trying to do a classic synth, and maybe you can try other waves too, but a saw wave is a great place to start. So that's with a saw wave. Not very good yet. Another way, so we want this to sound more real, and we can make it sound more real by adding more copies of this saw wave on top of each other. you have this in real life because whenever a sound exists in a room, it's bouncing off the walls. So you have copies of that sound that are entering your ear. So if we have copies, it'll sound less artificial. So let's add 8 more copies for a total of 9 different copies. I'm using the unison mode to do that. So this is 9 different copies. So all these copies are slightly different in pitch. They're slightly different in panning, so it's creating like a stereo effect. Now, they're all starting at the same time right now and then getting out of sync, which is causing that ding ding ding. I don't really want that sound for this, so I'm going to make them all start at different times by increasing the phase difference. Alright, so we're getting there. Let's try to find the sweet spot in terms of pitch. So I don't want it. So if we have so this is the difference in pitch between the 9 copies. So how different they are in their pitch. You see, they're slightly detuned with each other. If I have no pitch difference, it doesn't sound big. But if I have too much, it's out of tune. So we want a sweet spot. Maybe there. Alright, so now, here's another really good thing to try. Add more octaves. So right now we have this octave. Let's try just having a saw wave, same thing, just in a different octave. So we have this saw wave at 2x, so let's try going lower to 1x. So that's just down an octave. So now we're getting more layers. Now the bass is a bit boring. I'm going to make the bass a saw wave too. And then let's add some unison to the bass to make it sound bigger. I don't want that, so I'm going to make them all start at different times. Pretty cool. I want to get rid of some of the high frequencies on the bass just because I want it to sound kind of more like a cello. I don't want that buzzing on top. So I'm going to EQ it and get rid of some high frequencies. And I think I'll add an octave to the bass as well. Let's call this bass. Just to make it a bit more big. So another saw wave, and then this one will be 0.5, so up an octave. Alright, so let's make this more epic. So to add some epicness, let's create reverb. So I'm going to create a track just for reverb. And this will just sound really epic. Just to make it sound like the whole room is being shaken by it. Like reverb is the sound of... It's the sound of something bouncing around in the room and kind of the gradual decay that causes. So let's add some of that. So I'm going to add a reverb to it. And this is just a reverb track, so the dry will be 0, the wet will be 100. I'm going to make it decay kind of quickly so that it doesn't overlap too much with itself, because we're going to be adding a lot of reverb. So 1.2 second decay should be good, and let's make the room size a bit bigger for more epicness. And then let's route the synthesizer to the reverb. So, hear that? Pretty epic. Alright, and now let's control how the volume changes over the course of the sound. So in the original, in the credit song, the notes are kind of like dun 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 dun. They kind of sound like a guitar string, like they're like a palm muted guitar, in that there's a big increase in volume when the note starts, and then it decays fairly quickly. It's kind of like a palm muted guitar string. So we want to make the volume kind of like that, like it is in the original. So I'm going to route these to a filter so that we can manipulate the volume over time, over the course of the note. So these are going to go to filter 1, and then this is going to go to the output, and I'm going to turn the cut to 100 so that it's not cutting out any frequencies. And now, so let's activate this. So this is an envelope. This controls what the volume is like over time. So if I do this, you see it's starting out at 0 and gradually fading up. But what I want is for it to start high and then kind of decay quickly. And that's in the ballpark. Now, one thing is, though, there is that plucky sound in the original, but it kind of has a bit more sustain to it in that there's like this ominous sustained synth underneath it. So I want some sustain. So I don't want it to go to 0. I want it to kind of stay on, to kind of stay sustained to some extent even after it goes down. So I'm moving this. So this would just be like, but I want some ominous sustain. So I'm bringing this up so that it stays. And now let's add another octave, right? Like a lot of getting it to sound big is just having a lot of different octaves. So let's add another saw wave. This one, let's put it at 0.5 because we have one of them at 2. We have one of them at 1, and let's have one at 0.5. So just 3 octaves, and we have to add it. Now let's adjust the unison mode to see if we got the sweet spot correct for pitch. I think we pretty much got it. So really, you can fine tune it forever. You can adjust the volume of the different octaves and everything. Like really getting a sound exactly is just about a lot of trial and error and comparing with the original. But as for what we came up with, I would say that for this video, this is the final sound. So now you know how to create a sound like that. I may not have gotten it exactly, but hopefully you were able to see how I use some of the basic sound design concepts to get somewhat close. I hope you use these kinds of synthesizers in your own music. I really think that they can fit in all sorts of ways if you want like more of a, melodramatic 80s kind of flavor to your song. So hope that was helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment, all appreciated, and talk to you next time.